My name is Chuck Bonanno. I am the National Director of 20 Groups and Dealer Education and Training for NABD. And I have three esteemed panelists up here who are going to introduce themselves in a few minutes. I can tell you that I've been in this business since 1988. And buy here, pay here is my passion. That's all I've ever done. Yeah, well, my company bought some new car stores, and that was a disaster. And we got into subprime, and that was a disaster. But we were really good at buy here, pay here. And so I love teaching it. I love training. I love watching how dynamic the business is. I actually just went back recently and looked at one of my old collection boot camps I used to teach around the country and said, how many pages are relevant today? And I tore out almost everything in the book. So one of the things I want to make sure that happens with you guys is as you get to training is understand what you need to do in 2018 and beyond and not what you need to do in 1988. I've been moderating 20 groups since 2001. I've moderated 450 meetings as of the meeting I'm doing this week. I'm doing a meeting here in the hotel at the end of this one, at the end of this conference, and I love it. Love it, love it. And the gentleman I brought up here, I believe they're going to feel the same. They're going to share with you some of the best ideas and some of the things that they've gleaned from their 20 group participation and membership. And we'd like to be able to answer questions from the audience as you have them during the presentation before we go into the expo hall for lunch and the exhibitors at 12. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let my panelists introduce themselves to you guys. First here on my left is Eddie Hale. Go, Win.
Okay. Again, Eddie Hale, and I'm the president and CEO of Neighborhood Autos and Wise Credit. We're in the north central Texas area. We have 5 locations presently. We've downsized a little bit this last year, closed 3 locations in the first quarter of the year. I've been in the business 30 plus years. I'm like Chuck in the way that I love what we do, and and I love to learn, and I love to learn about how to do it better. We've been in the 20 group organizationally wise for about 20 years. I've been attending regularly for about 12 years. So it's as you'll learn it, I think from the panel and everything, it's one of the greatest things I've ever done is get involved and learn from my peers.
Great. Welcome. Lawrence.
Thanks, Chuck. My name is Lawrence Mead. We have 5 locations in Wisconsin, Easton Motors. We also have a related finance company. We also have integrated a Goodyear Tire and Automotive Service Center and a CarQuest Auto Parts store. I'm very, very passionate about this industry, heavily involved in our state organization. Kind of fun story, about 7, 8 years ago, I chaired the dealer body for Wisconsin, a buy here, pay here dealer, and that's wonderful. And it worked very, very well, very involved. Recently joined the National Buy Here, Pay Here Commission. Looking forward to that. Was in DC this year. What an experience. Great way to give back, but also a great way to have your voice heard. I would definitely encourage that. Today about the 20 group truly comes back to Ingram Walters and Ken Shilson. About 20 years ago in Tahoe, I attended the first meeting. And Ingram on the podium, just like he did today, make sure you have your back of your book open and write down things that you feel will change your world, will change your life, and enhance your team. Well, the first thing I did was to write down, join a 20 group. So 20 years ago I did. Game changer for me. Truly, if you ask me about the best ideal, was to join a 20 group. So I'm looking forward to today's presentation, and also want to thank everybody for being here. The people here are the ones that are the industry changers. I feel are the best. You want to do things right, you want to grow, you want to learn. Truly, I'm a student of the business. I look forward to taking care of our wonderful team. I look forward to taking care of our banking relationships and our third-party vendors. This is the place to start. And I tell you what, Chuck, thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you, Lawrence. And Rick.
I'm Rick Johnson. I own Earl's Credit Auto Sales in Portsmouth, Virginia. We are a single-point store. Portsmouth is in the eastern part of Virginia by Virginia Beach and Norfolk. Been in the business 19 years. Sell about 55 a month, have 965 accounts on the books. It's about 6.8 million. Been in 20 groups for 16 years and am currently in a regular 20 group and the service 20 group. We have a robust service center that really supports us. We do outside business and we do almost all of our customer work, and it runs a profit. That's about it.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen, because, again, these people are here at the conference. They paid to be here. We're not paying them to sit up here and tell you about their experience in 20 groups, so they took time out of it because they believe Does everyone in the room know what a 20 group is? I always forget to ask the simple questions. Does anybody not know? Don't be embarrassed. Yep. So I'll go real briefly to this one. Why is it even called a 20 group? I heard people talking about 2020. I thought that's a good idea, that it has some clarity, that you have vision. But it's in 1947, 20 Ford dealers in the Midwestern United States got together, and it was at a time when the government was putting pricing controls in place, and they wanted to have an avenue to work together to try to fight some of this stuff. It's the exact same time that NABD started, not by coincidence there. But forever and ever, there's been franchised 20 groups, groups of similar dealers from non-competing markets who get together 3 times a year. We review people's business, we review their business practices, we review their financial statements. One of the reasons we don't do competitors in a room is so that you'll be candid about your gross profit, your overhead, your delinquency, your charge-off, your asset management, inventory turns, whatever it may be, staffing, pay plans. We want you to be candid with each other, and we act as each other's board of directors. Does anybody here have a board of directors? Or are you just winging it, to quote a friend? So this is a chance, and I will tell you that we talked about this in the Get Ready room, that when people come to these 20 group meetings of their dealer board, it can be a tough day. Each one of those people in this room are going to nod their head. They've had tough days where they've been called out on some of the decisions they've made or decisions they haven't made or results or their inability to change. And it puts a lot of peer pressure upon you to make those changes and go back and do it. Somebody told me recently, someone said, they said, Chuck, you changed my life by being in a 20 group. And I said, stop it. Because you changed your life because you were exposed to things you were not exposed to otherwise. Because all you guys work in your business every day. Anybody worried about what's going on back at the dealership right now? Yeah. Don't worry. They're selling cars like crazy to everybody. We got to have an opportunity, and that's why you're here at this conference. That's why you go to your state associations or the national shows. But in a 20 group meeting and a membership of a 20 group is, we're going to meet 3 times a year to call each other out on some things that you need to fix. But you got to go home and do the work. And I've had some great successes. These guys are going to talk about some of the successes they've seen and had. We've also seen failures. I mean, I'm going to be the first to admit it. We've had dealers in 20 groups fail. And each time, someone says, well, how come the 20 group didn't change them? I said, no, the 20 group beat that dealer up for 5 years. They never made a change, and the inevitable happened. So you guys got to do the work. But it's a great way to get together with people who, each one of these gentlemen is probably going to talk about somewhat, is that we don't just see each other for a day and a half, 3 times a year. They're on the phone, they're on the forum board, they're on Google groups or Facebook groups. They talk to each other regularly. I'm involved in a lot of those threads, so I can tell you that they chat back and forth all the time. And they go see each other. I mean, I got to tell you guys, there's nothing better than going to see somebody's dealership. You talk to them, you've seen them, Roy, but until you go see their dealership and see how they actually operate, there's so much to be learned. So with that being said, I'm going to kind of jump right in with these guys. It's not about me talking today. But Eddie, I'm going to start with a broad question, then we're going to dive down into some of the best ideas you've ever got from this. But the first one is, why are you a member?
The first thing for me is relationships. In fact, our whole business is built on relationships. So it's an opportunity to develop relationships with like peers. Typically, 20 groups are, at least my experience is that the peer group are similar. They're across the nation, but they're similar in size to some, or multi-points or practices to some extent. So it's not like you're dealing with, if you're a small dealer and you're dealing with somebody that has a direct board of directors and all those kind of things. So you're able to obviously have these relationships, which also create that network of support for you. As Chuck mentioned, I can pick up the phone and call any one of my members, dealer members that I want, and get great advice, get very time-tested advice, something that's not guesswork. And quite honestly, if they don't know, they're brutally honest with you. It's the kind of friendship that you develop that, friends, we all have friends, right? But the kind of friendship that can call you out and still remain your friend. And that's the key to the whole thing is it's very transparent, it's very open and honest. The tough days are there because you know, you don't always like to be called out, right? But that's the benefit of it. It's the calling you out, the put you on the best that you can be. It promotes that, and that's the reason. I mean, it's networking, it's sharing, and education. I don't know if you can pay. You know, I don't know any university or anything else that can create the quality of education you have when you meet with your dealer peers and have that network of that's allowed that open communication, sharing of financials, sharing of business practices, business models, all those things. It's just a very, very educational from the word go.
Thank you. Lawrence.
I agree with everything that you've just heard. I'd also like to add in there benchmarking. You really have a chance to benchmark your numbers. You see in Ken with all the presentation he had earlier, valuable knowledge, valuable numbers, but now you can take it 10 steps more and benchmark yourself against 2 or 3 other members that are real similar to who you are, which I think the benchmarking really is important. The learning, I call learning or live another day. I want to stay of the 1% and I want to stay in business. What does that mean? Well, you're out front. You're learning, you're growing, and you're talking to other members throughout the nation that, just as said before, a phone call away, a 20 group meeting discussion, whether it be during the meeting or during an afternoon lunch or an evening dinner. You're talking about compliance, you're talking about game change, you're talking about law changes. You may even touch on areas that are really tough, maybe a lawsuit, maybe a tough law change. Numerous things that really bring you out front that are real to your life. And also, how many in here would want to hire a consultant that cared as much as 20 other people or 19 other people? You have that in a 20 group. 19 other members will help move your world. You know, even to the negative side, we had a 20 group member that passed away in a very, very freak accident. You know, it changed the dynamics of the group, but it also showed the heart of what a 20 group is. We all rallied, went to his family and said, you know what, you're going to be okay through this. We're not sure how we're going to do this right now, but we know your business. We understand your team. We've been hearing about it for years and years and years. And we did just that. Some of the older members that had the more time went down, moved in, lived there for a month and a half, 2 months. Some of us other members spent a week there. Well, how could we do that? We were the board, we were the consultants, and we knew the numbers, and we knew the family. A 20 group, like I said, is my best ideal. Share that with some of your team when you get home, and also it validates some of the learning. That's why I call it live another day, or learning. When you come back from the 20 group meeting, they might go, oh my goodness, he went to a 20 group meeting, what's going to happen today, right? Oh boy,
That
here we go.
happens every time.
Back from a meeting. Really get them involved, because now you have the metrics, you have the numbers you can share with your team. You can show them, look, this works. We're really great here. Over here, we have a lot of work to do. Pick 2 or 3 things and go to work, but it will help your team validate what you're bringing back as a message.
Wonderful.
Thank
you, Lawrence. And Rick.
I think the big thing is to be able to see what the real world is in buy here, pay here. If you're not in a group, you are operating basically in a vacuum. And with your other members, you are able to learn so much in such a short period of time, and then to have the opportunity to touch base basically anytime. One of the best things about the group are the best ideas. Everybody brings an idea, you bring one, you take 19 of them home. I challenge anybody to show me that they did not get a multiple time cash advantage or cash savings out of these ideas each and every time. The other thing that makes it so great, which has been touched on, is the composite. And the composite has about 1,000 different variables in it, 22 pages, and everybody's name is across the top, and then it has the numbers. And if you're in green, you're really doing well. Most people start on the left side of the page, and they gradually work their way over to the right side of the page. Or the left is the other way, left and then to the right. But it gives you the opportunity on a monthly basis, when you get the composite, to dig into it. And then the other thing is you're going to find 2 or 3 people that do the same kind of business that you do, and that's your 20 group buddies. Mm-hmm. And so every month when you get this, you're going to say, oops, I'm here and he's here. Guess what you're going to do? you're going to call them, text them, email them. Best is just the call. And they'll give you a quick rundown of why they are at that point. So, and the other thing, you got to leave your ego at the door and, be willing to accept constructive criticism. And if you go into my business, anybody wants to come visit, I'm up for it. I can look all around the business, or you can say, how did you get that out? How did you get that idea? And virtually every one of them is out of a 20 group.
Thank you. And with that being said, and we're going to have a booth in the expo hall, and you want to come talk in depth about being in a 20 group. I want to share with you guys some ideas these guys have got, and they've taken some notes on the ideas, and one of them even told me, he goes, oh my God, I looked at my 2006 ideas, and I don't think any of them are relevant anymore because we've changed so much. And that's probably true. But the point is that you're going to go to 3 meetings a year and get those ideas from people, and as it evolves and as the world evolves and technology evolves, you're always going to have pioneers in a group. One of the things that I personally love in 20 groups is watching those guys who say, I buy everything. You guys, anybody in this room that guy? I go in Expo Hall and I buy every product, every new technology and every service. I'm the guy who likes to watch them. Okay, how'd that work out? Oh, not so good? Thanks, good for you, sorry. But I'm gonna learn from that as well. But what I'd like to do right now with them is just let them share some ideas in some different categories out there. Rick showed you the composite, which is 22 pages of data that we collect from the dealers, volunteered each month. They key in their results from the prior month. It creates a 22-page book with about 1,000 data points to measure yourself against the industry benchmarks, the group average, and to Rick's point, which is a great point, and buddies in the room, guys who are, or girls who are just like you or most similar to you. You can say, why are they so good at sales? Why is that guy getting all the gross and I'm not? Why are their asset management and their inventory turns so good and mine not? Why are they able to get their cars to the shop with $300 less in recon than I am and the same quality of cars? Because these are the kind of ideas that we're going to give out to you guys and share with you guys in a 20 group that make, like I always say, someone says, I want to get a $10,000 idea. I promise you, I've seen $1 million ideas. One of the great ones is David Brotherton in the back. Raise your hand, David. He runs our service group as well as many buy here, pay here groups. And I watch the service group because it is really for buy here, pay here, the one we have right now. And if you imagine if you could save $200 or $300 per car on buying parts. Now, they call it Chuck math. I didn't really invent the term, but I just said, quit thinking about $200 per car in recon. How many cars do you sell a month? Multiply that by the $200 or $300. And how many will you sell in 5 years? And little ideas like that $200 or $300 can easily become $1 million idea. That's the beauty of these kind of things. And one of the things that we strive for as moderators is, I don't want to come to a meeting and say, hey, just sell more cars, because that's kind of stupid. Yeah, I'm selling as many as I can afford to, or as many as I can with the population base I have. We want to say, how do you get better at what you are doing? How can you save money, increase your grosses, increase your loan success rate, anything out there that's going to help you make more money without having to do more work, we're going to try for. So with that in mind, you guys, I'd asked you guys to get together any sales or traffic building ideas. Anybody got one they'd like to share?
Any best idea?
Yeah, any best idea?
For me, it really was looking at my strengths and my weaknesses. I enjoyed the inventory acquisition, I enjoyed the shops, the auto parts side of the business, and I love to talk to people. Obviously, maybe you can see that me up here, but the areas that I needed help on was compliance and protocol and deal flow and underwriting. Those are the areas, thinking back 27 years to where we are today, was the areas that the 20 group really, really helped myself, my team, and my organization. Each time we get together, you talk about best ideals, think of underwriting. Think of the scorecard, think of the loss, and following it all the way through. So for me, one of the things I would share with everybody is taking your scorecard, taking your losses, and make sure you follow them all the way through. How is it trending? Always staying on top of that, making sure you can understand your losses, understand why, track them. That was something that we found very fascinating in the 20 group, is looking at our losses, and more importantly, having our team state in our DMS why there was a loss. Lost a job, mechanical failure, whatever it was. So for our best ideal, just to share with the group, was tracking your losses, because it will change your world big time, and it opens your eyes.
Great. Rick, you want to go?
Yeah. I'm going to talk about the underwriting and collections. When we started in this group, we had a repo rate of like 60%, but we still were making money. because we were selling a low ACV car, which we still are. It's about a $4,500 car, $550 down, and about $500 in recon. So in the collection market, in the collection idea, we have a pay-ahead program. So the people pay an extra $5 a week, and it's put on recurring payments. They make 3 months worth of payments. They get $200 in repairs down at my shop. If they have money left over at the end of the contract, whatever that money is it's used to pay down the car. It works really well. The major part of collections is this good training. Dave Brotherton teaches a great class on it, and there are other sources, but you need collection training, and then to go back and train your collectors. The other thing that we do in the collection department is if we have a promise to pay, we're in touch with them the day before. If they don't pay, we're in touch with them that day, and then the next day they're on the review list. Same with promises to pay. Both contractual due and promises to pay, they hear from us.
Great, thank you. Eddie?
Well, down that same line, I guess, staying with that that particular idea source is underwriting. Collections obviously kind of run, hand in hand. And typically, y'all are asking us a question, but I'm going to ask a question. As far as underwriting, in the room, how many of you actually score to underwrite, or how many of you actually underwrite according to how you feel that day? Okay. Well, one of the things that occurred many years ago in the 20 group and everything, and it's funny how some of this stuff outruns, it gets out ahead of, and the benefit of the 20 group conversation is it gets out ahead of the trend. So, for example, I did pull some of those old things, old ideas up, and in 06 and in 08 and 2010 and so forth. So a few years back, scoring systems, I mean, we've all had maybe the deck of cards or whatever it is and everything, but actually scoring systems, advancement in the algorithms and the things that create that. And I would say that's probably one of the big game changers for us as an organization. We were able to underwrite better, deeper, consistently deeper, and still have great collection results that were associated with that. I'm not here to promote those type of vendors, but I'm pretty sure they're in our exhibit hall. But those people that supply you with the way to actually underwrite consistently and stay consistent with your underwriting process, it's the only true way to measure that collection process. So those numbers go right together with each other, and like I said, that's one of the ideas that we got, I believe it was in 2006 or 8, I can't remember exactly. And so even though we've changed that a little, it's been one of the more stabilizing ways to do business. I mean, your lenders that loan you the money, occasionally they have a pretty detailed process of underwriting, and those corporate banks across America and so forth all have that. It's just taking the idea and applying it to your business process, and that came out of it. Obviously, that translates into the next part, which is collections, and I agree with Rich. Training, of all the things we can do is train our people and consistently do that. But with that is, with the 20 group there again, how do you network to that trainer? How do you get that? Or are you just flying by your own thought process and everything? And sometimes that works very successful. But the sharing of information, the sharing of sources to get that information is very key. And that's where the 20 group really, really kicks in.
I'd like to add here, if I could, one thing, you know, we talk about validating your deal. Everybody in here, and Ken talked about earlier, validating your deal. What a 20 group does for myself and our team, Team Easton, it validates our business plan. It validates the different facets of our business, from inventory acquisition, underwriting, collections, admin, expenses to sell a car, the whole ball of wax. So I found it using the benchmarks, using my board of directors and consultants, you know, the first 20 group, it gives me that validation. I know when I first begun many, many years ago, I'm thinking, am I doing this right? Or what can I do better? Or how can I do better? Or how can I make more money? Or how do I retain people longer? How do I recruit and find more talent? Or how can I find the golden, you know, the golden way to buy the best car, right? You have all, at least I did, you have all these questions in your mind. Well, at a 20 group, you have a chance to discuss it with other people like yourself. And you also can validate what you're doing against what they're doing to see if maybe you're off the cliff, you're doing it completely wrong. And they'll tell you, which is great, or what you're doing does work. I wanted to share that, Chuck.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. How about in the world of technology? I mean, obviously, I'm thinking about the 30 plus years that I have in this business, and you know, I joke that cars are more expensive, but they're not very different, and customers are exactly the same, and I know some debate they're even worse than they've ever been. But the big shift in this world was technology, and for all of you guys who you know how old you are in this room, is I started this business with ledger cards. Anybody else? God, you're old. Holy God. Okay, most people don't even know what those are. We couldn't even calculate interest because no one had a calculator back then. So everything was interest-free and just marked up a lot. But we just changed, we changed everything. I mean, I thought the world was going to end. As a matter of fact, in 1996, we had 27 stores, and we said, we got to stop taking payments at our 27 stores, and I'm in charge of the finance company. I go, well, I'm getting fired next Friday. And lo and behold, it worked. And the things that we do in the 20 groups is there are people out there who will show you that different ways of looking at your business, non-traditional or progressive or whatever it may be, can shift your world. And what better way than to hear it from the guy sitting next to you who has nothing but your best interest at heart than from somebody who's trying to sell you something. So we actually did an Eddie's group in the spring, I believe it was, up in Philadelphia. We actually had everyone bring a technology idea, a platform or something that they bought that they threw away. That said, hey, this might work. It didn't work for us. And it was really just an interesting twist of saying this is the greatest idea. They said, well, this actually turned out to be one of the worst ideas. But I'm going to ask you guys, if you guys have a technology that you learned about through your 20 group members that you put into place that has changed your world.
The 20 group also can validate maybe the technology platform, your DMS, other experiences they may have, good, bad, or ugly. Maybe a new way of tracking insurance. Has anybody done it? And how did it work out for you? Whatever it may be, the technology is only going to be as good as the people using it, but also how do you know, because you've never used it before. Now you have the 20 group that can really give you some insight. Yeah, this provider of this software really, really works. Well, myself, and kind of to share with everybody here, we found ourselves key punching way too much. You know, this technology didn't communicate with this technology. This technology really was great, but it didn't communicate with our DMS. So we worked with our DMS to integrate more, and we're really working towards more of an enterprise solution, all under one roof, and where the data is there. You know, because data really is going to be the key to everything we do going forward. So I would share with the group here, make sure you're thinking about that key punching, the time, and then also whatever you choose for a technology, make sure it integrates, because it's a lot of time to move from this scoring or this software over to your DMS or vice versa.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. Rick?
Yeah, one of the great things about current DMS programs is that you can, on your own, with some of them, just talk to folks in the hall, you'll figure out who does it and who doesn't do it. But you can design your own forms and your own reports. So you can go in, you know, something you want to know every day, you plug that in and you get the information back. I also want all of my vendors to be able to come through my DMS, which is what we do. The other ideas, well, there are two more. First is to maximize Facebook, and there are dealers out there, one who is incredible that only does all their business through Facebook. They sell a lot of cars, get a lot of applications, and if they if a customer walks on the lot, they don't even go greet them. They wait for the customer to walk in. You want to be able to get Facebook likes. And there are lots of ways to get Facebook likes. It's basically to offer something, to create a reason for them to like you. We give away bicycles every year, and we ask for people to like us and tell us why their son, daughter, granddaughter, whomever should get the bicycle. And we're coming up on 10,000, and my other friend that I just referred to has 35,000 likes. The other technology that is really great, there are at least a couple people in the hall that have a program that allows you to ask your customer to review you on the spot. And so you call it up, and this is George S., the phone number, send it to them, and they can write a review while we're putting all the paperwork in a deal jacket. And when people come in that have come to us, lots of times it's the reason because the reviews are so good. The other thing, if you're getting reviews after reviews, when somebody sticks one in there that's not so good, it causes the person who's looking at it to say, well, why do I have 15 good reviews and one bad review? And what it really does is it validates the fact that this is real world and those folks are in there. So that's my ideas.
Great. Eddie?
Okay. Technology is one of those things, I'm old, but I love technology. And so we either try to create it or we try to buy it. And but one of the things is technology is a pretty broad term, and you know, converting some paper to digital is a technology, right? So I just went back through the other day, and it looks at some of the things that actually are in our business practice or in our business model. For one thing is a customer resolution program. CFPB came out with that a few years ago and recommended that everybody have one in the way to store and everything else. But actually, that was a 20-group idea in 2009.
Long before CFPB.
And so that ability to chart and keep up with your customer complaints and the resolution to those complaints has actually a 20-group idea, and the 20 group that I'm in was actually in 2009, so that's a little bit ahead of the curve. Texting your customers, text to pay, the ability to contact the customer by text was a 20-group idea in 2010. The ability to pay online or pay in a portal is also a 2010 20-group idea. That's part of our business model. We've been collecting payments online for many years now. Internet reviews, that's also a 2011. Start getting your reviews, how to get your reviews, how to get that built up reviews. That was in 2011, 20-group idea. Scoring models I've already mentioned. Paper going digital, you know, eliminating the paper, having digital files, digital profiles. Signing your customers up digitally. You know, you got DocuSign, all that kind of stuff going on across the world. There's also programs and things available. We also incorporate things like, we've had a mobile app for pretty well 8 years, I think now, and our customers can pay through a mobile app. And then also we've had, you know, I go back to one of the greatest ideas in our industry is GPS providers and starter interrupt devices. Just a game changer in our world, at least, for a way for us to be able to collect efficiently and take care of our business model. So technology is a huge, huge part, not to mention our DMSs and all the other integration, CRMs and all those things. It's just incredible, but so much of this, at least from my perspective, is part of our business model, and it came out years ahead of the mass majority is using those kind of things. So technology is huge in our business.
I would also add in the technology, as you look to grow or work with your banking partner, whoever that may be, they're going to really look at that part of your business with the reporting and the technology and the compliance and the complaint resolution, the ability to communicate to your banking partner who you are, how you're doing, and what the numbers are, from the static pool or whatever it may be. Just understand when you look to move forward and to grow your lines or get into a line of credit, you're going to need that strong DMS, and you're going to need that ability to use technology and communicate the different reports or different stats or different numbers that will be required to bank with your partner.
Great. I'm a big proponent of looking at the things that you can control. And I'm really, as a moderator, trying to dial in my guys and girls in my groups to really focus on cash. And one of the things that what's interesting is like gross profits. You guys ever sell a car and get a $5,000 or $6,000 or $7,000 gross? Anybody? Everybody? And you open up your wallet, is that $7,000 there? No? Probably minus $7,000 cash and deal the day you sold a car. Kind of does the opposite kind of effect. And when you do a charge off, right? Do you look in the bank account to see if money's missing? Because it's not. But expenses are real. So I'm going to ask you guys this question. You don't have to know the answer today, but I'm trying to think about it. What is your overhead per retail car sold? And I do not mean the cost of goods. I don't talk about your car. I'm talking about you add up everything from commissions to selling the car all the way down to your electric bill, rent, everything you spend money on to run your business. And if you know that number, and we can come by the booth, I'll share with you the benchmark on that number. But I can tell you that if you move that number from where you are, $200, $300, $400 a car, and everybody who goes down that path who has high expenses, high overhead per car, you know what they tell me the first thing? I look at it all the time. That's as low as I can go. And I watched a dealer in California. He was spending $900,000 a month in overhead. And got himself in a little bit of a trick place with his bank and said, I've got to cut the whole thing back. And we tried to right-size his business so he could pay down some of his debt. And he sold more cars with $300,000 less per month overhead. Now do that math for 5 years. He can literally pay off his entire line of credit. Okay, because that's you write a check for every bill right? Mr. Whitman? Yeah. That's real stuff. Everything else is kind of in the air until we collect it. So I'm going to ask you guys if you have any expense cutting ideas that you've put into place in your groups, from your group experience. Lawrence, you want to go?
For me, this is an area that I'm working on currently, and you seem to be working on it every day. But the big one I will share with you is no matter what size you are, small, medium, or very large corporation, sign the check. Or make sure you have the account delivered to your home or delivered to your control completely at the end of the month so you have a chance to go through it. And then pick a dollar amount, say it's above $500 or above $1,500, and then audit different categories. I know for me that was a real great way to really start the journey of expense control, but also growing your business. And as Chuck says, every dollar saved you can put back to work goes right to the bottom line. So I would share that, Chuck.
Rick, you got one?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. Your biggest expense other than buying cars is personnel. And what you need to do is go back and look at what you're paying these folks and say, do I really need all these people? So it's back to all these people. It goes back to the Ingram Walters great comment, go home and fire somebody. And it's real
Is he still sticking
easy.
with that one? Where'd he go?
It's real easy to get fat in that department. On the other end, I have a service center, and I'm of the belief that it's much easier to operate a service center than to send out your repairs, although people argue both sides. The big thing there is if you're sending business out, you gotta negotiate not only the rates that they're charging, but the prices that you're paying for parts, and you pay for the parts. You write the check. And what we have done, we have in the 20 group, it was already been mentioned that we do parts pricing. And so we started out not so good and have worked our way in buying everything local to about the halfway point. We mostly don't buy from the Rock Autos of the world, and we have been buying top tier parts because we're going to probably have these cars for a good while. So we came back, and we have a Napa store in our store in the service department, and we sat down with the guy that owns the Napa franchise and said, here's what it is. What can we do to improve this. And he came right back and said, you really don't need the top tier. Even though you want to keep the cars, drop it by to the second tier, and they priced everything out and negotiated batteries and all this stuff. And we basically, because of that, are saving about $10,000 a month in parts.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Eddie, anything to add to that?
Well, obviously, I've kind of preached on technology, and technology sometimes can cost you, and sometimes it can save you. We, like I said, we're multi-location, multi-point location, and everything. So, and people are the most expensive things we have. Now, of course, I understand most of us are and we've always got the people that have been with us a long time, and we feel like we're obligated in keeping people employed, and that's very admirable, and all those things, and it makes us the people we are. But also there is there's, as Chuck testified to, it's the ability to make your company more profitable, more effective, and actually be able to change with the times as you go along the way. So one of the things we did is we implemented kiosks instead of cashiers. And I was able to replace 14 full-time people with technology. It was considerable savings, obviously, and people always worried about the personal touch, but actually we eliminated the personal touch with the cashier, which usually was chewing gum and reading some novel, and
calling in sick and coming in
and
late.
calling in sick and
Baby daddy issues.
Yeah, all the above and everything. So technology, I would say that probably some of our better cost reduction type of things is the ability to actually utilize lower cost technology to replace high cost human factor.
Chuck, I would also add in the 20 group in the composite will really identify, I know it definitely has for me and our 20 group members, it'll identify areas that you may think you're really strong in, or you're doing really, really well. Like, wow, that's no problem, I got that handled, because I know a lot about it. Oh my goodness. All of a sudden you get to your page and you dial into cost to sell a car on advertising or whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden you're on the wrong side of the page. Your costs for that particular category are way out of line, even though I had a false sense that, yep, I'm dialed in, I'm doing great. The 20 group composite gives you validity and also tells you the real story. Maybe you aren't. Maybe that's an area you need to go back and go to work on. I know, Chuck, you looked at me and said, Lawrence, go back to work and work hard here. You thought you were doing it well, but you're not. And so would our group would look at me and say, hey, this you need to work on. So the 20 group composite and the value of that, I can't stress it enough. Really tremendous way to really dial in your whole organization.
Yep. I know we're coming up on 12 o'clock, and I know you guys want to have lunch again in the expo hall. I'm just going to leave you with a few things that I just want to, there's two things. Number one is, say, when am I going to be ready for a 20 group? We have 20 groups from guys who've been in business for 10 minutes and guys for 100 years. But everybody always says after the very first meeting, should have done this a long time ago. And that's what you'd find as well. I'm passionate about it because I've watched people grow from, little ugly ducklings to swans in this business by taking heed of their fellow members' advice and some of these ideas. We've also watched some tragedies. We've watched people go from the left of the page to the right of the page as we rank them and vice versa. And we all take it really personally when someone's not doing well, don't we? I mean, we really take it to heart, and we really want to help them do good in their business because it's a source of pride for us. And one of the things that happens is you guys may have friends, you may have people you go to the auction with and tell you about how good they're doing or how poorly they're doing. Just know those local guys, they're all lying to you. I learned early on buying cars that the old farmer who said things were terrible all the time and then he just bought 50 cars in the lane is probably not telling me the truth. And the guy who's being called to the office because his check's no good, but he says, I'm killing it. You might find that these guys are going to tell you, the guys and girls in our groups are going to tell you upright, and they're going to give you ideas. And again, I mean, you guys, how many of you guys use a CRM in your business? Okay? So it's funny because I didn't know what one was up until I couldn't live without one. But you'll find out that some people don't need a CRM. Some of it is size-based, some of it's location-based. Anybody have a BDC, a business development center in here? Okay? We've got lots of guys who've said, I used to have one. I don't anymore because I couldn't make it work. And those are all okay, but we're going to give you the best advice before you start down that path. Rick just talked about he couldn't believe working without a shop, without his own service department. We're actually going to have in my group that Eddie's in November, we're meeting in Denver, and one of the topics is we have a dealer in the Kansas City area who's got 7 stores now, I think, about 250 car sales a month and has never had a shop. And we're going to say, how the hell do you do it, right? And we may at the end go, I'm still not doing that, okay? But at least I'm going to get an idea of how you can actually sell that many cars and not have your own service department, because it baffles me, right? And that's the thing that we find here in Lawrence, and you guys can tell you that, man, you're going to learn a lot of different ways to do this business and ways maybe you hadn't thought of that could do it. And there's some things that just like, nope, I'm just not doing that. And at the end of the day, when you can say, I've been given all this information and I'm still going to keep doing what I'm doing, you'll learn something too. So anyway, I want to thank these gentlemen up here for taking time.